Welcome back, everyone. As usual, we are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's my partner in crime, Lewis.
Ugh.
And he's rocking the 80s Lou hat today. Good job. Haven't seen that make an appearance before, so about time you broke it out.
Yeah, it's made an appearance a while ago.
Did
A
it?
while. Yeah,
I
a while
don't
ago.
remember it. So I've got to show off.
I was just noticing that. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Marine World Africa USA. I've never been to the park in Vallejo, but Marine World Africa USA was it considered Belmont or San Carlos?
I want to say it was considered Redwood City, but
Redwood
that doesn't sound
City.
right either.
All right, so it was in
That's
the
a
Bay
good
Area.
question.
That's where Oracle sits now. And it's probably like it ended up going under in the 80s. Love the place. So the first theme park that I had season passes to, thanks to my family. And probably the only place, well, I'm sure there are other places, but the only place I knew of where they would walk a 400, 500 pound Bengal tiger through the crowd on a leash and you'd go up and pet it. What could go wrong? But anyway, I saw this shirt, had to have it. Anyway, we're back, and this is kind of a little unusual for us because it's probably not music you associate with what we usually talk about. It was probably one of the biggest albums of the 80s, and you can't buy it anymore, at least not in the way it was originally presented. And there's a whole bunch of controversy around it. And of course, we're talking 1989's Milli Vanilli, Girl, You Know It's True. Whoa, quite the collector's item there, Lou.
And no cellophane.
Oh, I was like, I was waiting for a signature or something in there. I was
No,
like,
no, no.
what do you got? Amazingly, like I said, you can't buy that album, or you can go to Lewis's house and steal it, but you can't get it anymore in the form that Lewis has it. You can find it probably on eBay or something like that. And everyone acts like nobody liked it now, right? It's kind of like remember Achy Breaky Heart, how it was so huge and
Oh
suddenly
God.
nobody liked it. In the US alone, it went platinum over 6 times over. Spent 7 weeks at number one and 41 weeks in the top 10. So apparently somebody else other than Lewis bought the damn album. But there's a lot of controversy. We're going to get into it. But I personally enjoyed the album. Do you remember, Lou, when you first got introduced to Millie and Vanilli?
I remember hearing them on the radio, and I remember like immediately liking them, not knowing anything about them, but immediately liking it. It was just super, super catchy. And again, not the type of music that I usually listen to, definitely back then. But yeah, I don't specifically remember the moment, but it was on the radio, and I remember liking them a lot.
I think the first time I heard them was on MTV,
Hmm.
seeing the video. And obviously, they're a very visual band. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I really like the songs. So we got to talk about it. So, Girl, it's true, is the brainchild of Frank Farian, who was a big time producer in Europe. Apparently, the guy had like studios throughout Europe where everyone would come and record, where he'd spend like millions, like $1 million on each studio. So
Wow.
this guy was it, and he had done apparently something like this before, where he found artists to record and use somebody else for the visuals, and that and did really well in Europe. So he decided to recreate this. He met a couple young break dancers in Germany, Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan. I guess they were kind of like competitors in that scene, the dance scene, became friendly after a while and started performing together. And he sees them and goes, "Wow, this is gonna be amazing." So you end up with Milli Vanilli, which I guess they were trying to come up with a name similar to Scritti Politti. Remember Scritti Politti?
I do.
Yeah, so Milli Vanilli, we got Milli Vanilli, and the rest, as they say, is history. But again, the history is not great. So for me, like I said, it was interesting to first see it because it was a very visual band, right? I didn't necessarily care for the dancing, and I didn't really care for the way it was presented, but I did love the songs. And so, you owning the album, do you have a favorite song on the album?
Oh, Girl, You Know It's True is the first one that immediately pops to my head. But oh God, Blame It on the Rain was a really good one.
Do you know? Did it
Um,
say the writing credit on that?
it doesn't say it where I'm looking at it right now,
Diane
no.
Warren,
Really.
who wrote a million hits.
But super well produced stuff. I was reading that I guess they actually formed a band before Milli Vanilli that they call themselves as Empire Bizarre, and they released a single called Danzed Danze, and I listened to it. Not great, but they actually sang, right? Or they actually performed, so that just sort of mixes things up even a little bit more as we get into more of the controversy, which I'm sure you're going to go into soon.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but I don't know. I like you said, "Girl, You Know It's True" is a great song. "Blame It on the Rain," you can't go wrong with Diane Warren. I really love the ballad "I'm Gonna Miss You," and I still listen to some of those songs today. So I'm Gonna Miss You is one of my favorites. One of the things I didn't know is Girl, You Know It's True, which obviously we think Milli Vanilli was actually done by a band a year prior, released a year prior by a band called Newmarks. And as soon as I discovered that, I listened to it, which sounds very similar, right? And I sent it to you. What was your opinion of the Newmarks, the original version of "Girl, You Know It's True"?
Yeah, I wasn't aware that it was a cover until you sent me that, the the song today. And it sounds really close. I mean, there are some nuances that are different. It's still good, and I don't know if it's just because I'm used to the Milli Vanilli version of it. I don't like it as much as the Milli Vanilli version.
I would agree, and I don't think it's because you heard the Milli Vanilli version first. I think it's just a more polished version of that. And the interesting thing about Newmarks is, I guess these guys were pretty young when they wrote that song. And it was like, I believe that was off their only album. And Frank Farian heard it, wanted to use it. Apparently, you know, didn't go through the proper channels and released it. So there were people going up to one of the band members of Newmarks going, "Hey, your song's on the radio." And he goes, "Yeah, I get some airplay around here." But then somebody else said, "Hey, I saw your video." It's like, "We didn't do a video." So when he found out about it, that they released "Girl, You Know It's True" without his permission, he sued Arista Records, Frank Farian, Milli Vanilli, blah, blah, everybody he could. And I guess, even though he was young, he was very smart. And so his lawyer comes in one day and says, "Oh, you're going to be very happy." And he said that the money that they were able to make off that song bought houses, bought cars. So it's
Wow.
pretty incredible. But again, it goes back to Frank Farian, right? Like, how the heck do you think you're going to release somebody else's song and not compensate them? Um, for such an astute businessman and a producer. A little strange.
Yeah, maybe there's some method to the madness. Maybe not so much. I mean, I'm sort of thinking of the comparison with oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart on his name. This is horrible. Um, oh man.
Vanilla Ice?
Thank you, Vanilla Ice.
How the hell I pulled that out, I don't
Ah,
know.
Vanilla Ice. But there, I mean, with that, it was more of a, hey, this is already a well-known tune. It's gonna, sort of, make hit some earworms, and it was different, right? I mean, the song was pretty much unknown, and for them to pick that up and release it, it is weird. I'll have to admit, yes,
Well, it's kind of like in the '90s, that band, The Verve. I don't know. They had that one hit, which is "Bittersweet Symphony,"
right,
built around a sampling of an obscure Rolling Stones song.
right.
And I guess they figured, oh, well, nobody's gonna care. It's pretty obscure, whatever. And they released it without the Rolling Stones knowing about it. And the Rolling Stones have money and they have lawyers and they had a lawsuit. And I think I read somewhere like 85, 90% of the profits from that song go to the Rolling Stones, where they probably
That's
could have
brutal,
paid
man.
like $5,000, $10,000 and said, "Hey, can we use it?" And the Rolling Stones probably would have said, "Sure." Nobody remembers that song, not realizing what a hit it would have been. But
I remember.
hindsight is hindsight.
I remember that song being used in, I think it was a Nike commercial after the Stones sued, and so they made tons of money off of that song as well. It's sort of screwed for the Verve, but that's '90s. We can't talk about that.
You can't. Um, so everything's going really well. Milli Vanilli's. They even won the Grammy for the Best New Artist in I think February of '89. Yeah,
90.
'90. Sorry.
It's all right.
And then it all comes crashing, eventually it comes crashing down, which is interesting because in July '89, they're out on tour with Club MTV. And it was that infamous incident where the the recording gets stuck and keeps repeating something, I think, girl, it's true over and over, and gets stuck, and they run off stage nervous. They didn't know what to do. The thing that I found really interesting about that is MTV kept showing it, and it was their damn tour. Do you remember seeing that on MTV?
I do. I remember the skipping almost sounded like it was a CD that was skipping. It was doing the
Right.
same thing, and that's funny, man. That's yeah. And I almost think that they could have played it off, right? Because it's not like there aren't bands that don't lip sync. I mean, that's happened for an eternity. But no, that coupled with a couple of other events really put him out in the limelight.
Well, I mean, I saw Janet Jackson, and I'm sure I saw other people at lip synced, but Janet Jackson, I think it was the Rhythm Nation tour. That was one of the worst that I ever
Mhm.
saw. Like, it was really bad. But the majority of the audience really didn't care. But so it's strange because, like you said, that, or like I said, that came out in July of '89. February of '90, they're still winning the Grammy for Best New Artist. And then the proverbial, what, hits the fan. So you sound like you know a little bit more than I do in regards to what exactly transpired.
Well, first of all, one of the things that I read was that, and I felt really bad after I read this, that Milli Vanilli sort of got suckered into this thing, right? They signed thinking that they were going to go ahead and sing their own songs when then Frank
Farian.
Farian said, hey, no, that's not the case. You're going to be the faces, but we've got some guys that can write music and sing, but they don't have the faces. So uh, they were stuck to their contract because they were in debt without everything that the record company already spent on them, and they had to make a way to make it back. So they started off with the agreement of saying, okay, we're going to do this until we can pay everything back. But by contract, they were stuck to it, man. And I didn't realize that until today.
Yeah, I mean, I actually watched, there's a documentary too, and I still need to see that in regards to Milli Vanilli. But I watched a very long interview, I had probably a few years back, with Fab, and it sounds like, the classic, they're, they're poor, for lack of a better term. they're offered, a few $1,000s to sign this contract. They're young, they're, immature. They don't even have a lawyer in the room to look at this contract. They just know that they're going to get a few $1,000s out of it, which they needed at the time, so they willingly sign it. Like you said, they thought they were going to perform. Frank Farian, I guess, said they were like two of the worst singers ever, which I disagree with. He
Right.
hurt us. Uh, but you know,
Nice.
you're right. They kind of get in this, and they're like, "Wait a sec," and they had spent money, and they're trying to pay this back, and it just becomes a perfect storm, right? Like, who would have ever expected them to hit in the level of success and the level, the heights that they were succeeding at, and now they're kind of stuck with it. And from what he said, like, you know, first off, they didn't even know that this Girl You Know It's True had ever been recorded before until it came out. So they didn't know about that. And he said Frank Farian kept them totally separate from the studio musicians. Like they had no idea. Like when they were hearing the songs, they were hearing them as instrumentals.
That's crazy. Um, to answer your question, because I don't think I actually directly answered it, there had been some rumblings before that event, or the lip syncing to the CD, went bad. Or I think it was Charles Shaw, who was one of the people who actually performed on the recording, had started telling people, "Oh, hey, that's not really them. That's us." And the other guy, Brad Howell, who played the keys and also sang, he paid Charles $150 to shut up. So then Charles sort of rescinded everything that he had said, but I think that planted a seed, right? And then with the performance event taking place, I just think maybe it was too much that they felt they couldn't cover it up anymore.
Well, yeah, eventually it did come out. And there's some differing of how it actually came out, but it did come out. Arista, their record label, immediately um, deleted that album from existence. Like I said, after it sold 6 million, I know fans were trying to do like a lawsuit against it. Um, from the interview that I saw in regards to this, um, Arista's way of solving it was like, hey, if you had proof that you had bought the album, and who still had that proof, right? Probably cash was spent for most of them, and nobody kept the receipts.
Sure.
You could present it and get like $4 off, like a different Arista album or CD or something like that. So of course, very few people were able to take advantage of that discount. But like you said, it's kind of a tragedy. Here you had this huge successful band, and like everything else, now all of a sudden everybody comes out of the woodwork and they hate it. I mean, even before then, right? I don't know if you remember before the controversy, the famous "In Living Color" skit.
Hmm.
You do?
Actually, no, I'm thinking of the Michael Jackson one. I don't remember the one for Milli Vanilli.
They had something where it was like you could send away for this kit to be Milli Vanilli, and it was they basically had like mop heads, and they put the mop head on them.
Oh,
They're
that's
like, now
vaguely
we can be
familiar.
around like Milli
Yeah.
Vanilli. And so that was, even before then, the backlash was coming, right? It was, I guess it's kind of inevitable. And then of course, they did try to, I think they released a single under the Rob and Fab. And I do remember watching them on Arsenio performing it. I don't know if you did.
No, I don't remember watching them. I did take note of the single. Uh, we Can Get It On is what it was called, and yeah, it was under Robin Fab.
Yeah. So they actually, I think that's the song that they performed on Arsenio Hall. And Arsenio, they performed and they sat on the couch with Arsenio. And, one of the first things he said to them is, like, you guys can sing. Why the heck? And so I don't remember the interview beyond that, but I do remember them trying to rehab their image. And I think it was just one of those things that um, was just too late now,
Yeah. Yeah.
fortunately. And a year later, CNC. You remember CNC Music Factory?
Oh yeah.
So they also had the controversy.
Me sing
Um,
song.
that's not CNC Music Factory. Um,
But that's who they're making fun of. But anyway,
yeah, yeah. So the singer for CNC Music Factory was the singer for the Weather Girls.
oh, okay.
And so, of course, they didn't use her in the video. They used, a very sexy young woman to lip sync it, kind of, a Milli Vanilli thing. And I guess the lawsuit happened with them. And the results of that lawsuit is a change in the music industry where you were required to list the performers on there. And so when they re-released, I think it's Milli Vanilli, "Girl, You Know It's True," greatest hits or something like that. Like, it's not the original packaging. Um, they list Rob and Fab as visual performers.
Mm,
So, you know,
it's
let me,
true, but
let me
it's
ask
sad.
you: do you ever try to do any of the moves from the Milli
Yes.
Vanilli?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. The one where they go like this and like this. I've tried to do it, and
you never did
I
the running chest bump.
no, 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 no. Just
I remember alcohol taking place a few times where myself and our bass player, who actually owned the album, would do that running, flying chest bump of Milli Vanilli. I'm sure the height that was required was not met, but man, we tried.
and they look so graceful doing it, right? It's all in slow motion and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you need to recreate that. Um, but again, it's you think about it, and yes, the songs were great, but the videos are what really sold that band. And Rob and Fab don't get anything for those albums. They don't get any royalties whatsoever because they didn't write, they didn't perform, and the contract that they got didn't, save them at all. So they got nothing from it.
Yeah, that's I sort of get it, but then I it's as you're pointing out, they were part of the package, right? They were the marketing, if you will, of that album, and it is a shame that they, all they get is sort of backlash from that, not anything else.
And then, of course, Rob died April of '98. So one of the things that I was watching in this interview with Fab is he talked about, kind of the um, kind of how persecuted they felt after this, right? Like they didn't, they both fell into deep depression, which increased their drug usage. Um, Fab talked about how he wouldn't, even want to go out to get groceries.
Wow.
Something as simple as that, going out to get groceries. So he said he didn't leave the house, for months. Then when he would try and go to get groceries, he'd go late to get them, and inevitably run into people. And he's just like, no, next time somebody else is going to get my groceries. Um, and he said, Rob, who was listed as, it's listed as a suicide for
Hmm.
him. But Fab was saying that he kind of knew that. Fab was saying that his drug use, he kind of stopped because he knew that the Milli Vanilli thing was gonna come to a head, and he didn't want to be in that place with that hitting at the same time. So he cleaned up before the scandal happened. He said Rob didn't. I guess, he said Rob was adopted. Not that that's a bad thing, but he didn't really go into that. He just said that Rob just didn't have a support system. So he continued to use drugs, and he said that the day before he overdosed or committed suicide, like I said, that's what's on the autopsy report. He was going the next day to rehab.
Wow.
So Fab was saying that, he was going to rehab the next day and he thinks it was one of those things where he just simply said, you know what, this is my last go around. I'm probably partied, like thinking, okay, this is probably the last time I'm ever going to use drugs. So let's make it a good one. And that was it.
Yeah, yeah, super sad. And they were, I guess, just getting ready to do like a comeback tour from what I was reading, when he died. And they'd finished recording an album called Back in Back in the Attack or Back for the Attack. I'm not sure I typed that in correctly. And it's never been released.
Hmm.
That kills me, man. It's never been released. It's out there somewhere in a vault, just sitting there collecting dust. That kills me. I'd love to hear it.
Well, you bought another album called The Real Milli Vanilli, right?
Yep, I got that one right here too.
Oh, okay. How's that?
It's good. It's good. There's especially one song here, When I Die. I think that's the one that I really liked. That's really, really good.
Did Frank Farian
There,
do that one too?
I think he did. Yes, at Farian Studios,
Okay,
produced by Frank Farian. Yep. And
interesting.
so that is a really cool tune. And it actually, when I heard it, it sounded familiar to me. It's like I'd heard this before. So it must have gotten some radio airplay somewhere. The rest of the CD is okay, but that one song was actually really good.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, or like I said, Diane, when you have access to like people like Diane Warren, right, on the US version, you probably after a big controversy, you're not getting the same level of writers, which I'm sure affected the songwriting process. There's nobody that you found that you could rip off and try and steal their song. So, um, one of the interesting things I thought about when I watched this interview with Fab is he was saying that he had really hadn't had much contact. I don't remember exactly when this interview was originally recorded, probably a few years back. Um, but he was saying that he finally got to meet the two singers um, of that were the singers for the Milli Vanilli album, one of which was a gentleman named John Davis. And John Davis is the one that did the parts that he was lip syncing to. Well, I guess they actually became really good friends, and they started performing together in Europe, called The Voice. What it was something like The Voice, The Face and the Voice, the songs of Milli Vanilli or something to that effect. And they became really good friends and were touring Europe and performing together. I don't know if they still do or not. Like I said, this was a few years back, probably pre-COVID, if I'm guessing. But that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, that would be. I saw like just a small part of the documentary that was getting ready to be released at the time. And I guess it was Fab singing. He sounded pretty good, man. He sounded pretty good. And Rob actually was a backup singer in a band called Wind. I mean, they had to have been able to sing somewhat.
And, like you said, you heard the single that they did. I saw them perform, and that was a live performance on Arsenio, and it was pretty good.
Yeah,
Um, it wasn't like the singers were, for Milli Vanilli were so outstanding, like they were untouchable, right? It wasn't like, they were singing, with Jeff Tate and Rob Halford. Um,
right.
it didn't have to be that great, but especially with all the effects. I mean, even more so today, right? But you think of all the effects you could have done to make them sound better, and it probably would have worked just fine.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I agree.
again, nobody likes this album, but it sold 6 million in the U.S. alone.
I still play it proudly in my car, man. Great,
And
great album, man.
you play "Achy Breaky Heart" too.
Achy breaky heart. I, no pun intended, steer very, very clear away from that one.
All right, well, good to know. I think that's about it. Like all I have in regards to can you show me the move again?
Uh, my sitting down move. There's one thing that I actually uncovered in my research that I had completely forgotten about, and I don't know if you remember seeing this on TV or not, but it had to be maybe a few months after the news broke that Milli Vanilli, when they were actually not singing or lip syncing, they capitalized on that and they made a commercial for Careless Sugar-Free Gum where they're singing, right? But they're lip syncing an opera. And I think that the punchline at the end of it was, yeah, careless sugar-free gum or sugarless gum, it'll have flavor until these guys actually sing.
Hmm. He mentioned that he did a KFC commercial, and I meant to check it out, but never got around to it. Oh, I got to bring this up. What did you think? This was on, I guess, an earlier album, Milli Vanilli's cover of Hush.
Oh my God, dude, that was a tragedy. That was bad. That was very,
So
very
that's not
bad.
on the album you own, right?
It's not. I don't believe that it is. I don't
So
remember hearing it.
I think to me it was on the first release, the European version before they released, added a few tracks for "Girl, You Know It's True" in the U.S.
Yeah,
But
it's,
so
I don't either.
you're not a fan. You're not going to recommend people go out and listen to Milli Vanilli's version of Hush.
No, no, because they could have done that justice, right? They could have actually done it right, but they didn't. They did it so wrong.
I don't know if they could have done it justice, but you're a much more positive person than I am. You're a people person, Lil. I'm not a people person.
Uh, yeah, I'm catching up to you.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. Welcome. It's so much easier, trust me. So we've exhausted our love of all things Milli Vanilli.
I think so. I think that you or I touched on everything that I had taken notes on. So yes.
Awesome. Cool. Nothing to add. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys watching. If anybody else is a fan of Milli Vanilli, please don't lie. Again, they sold, they went 6 times platinum. Somebody bought the damn album. I did not buy it. I did not buy it, but I do enjoy it. Um, I don't know why I never bought it. Probably because I heard it enough on the radio and stuff that I felt like I didn't need to own the physical copy of it.
Yeah, they definitely they played the crap out of it and all the really good songs, obviously. And they had like 3 or 4 hits, right?
Um, Baby, don't forget my number. Blame it on the rain. I'm gonna miss you, and girl, you know it's true.
Yeah, yeah.
See, you hear it, you still want to do it. So that's all credit to them. By any chance, did you discover not that the dance moves were that great, um, but did they choreograph themselves? Do you know?
I don't know. I didn't see
I
that one.
didn't see anything about that either, so I would be curious. But I mean, with their dance background, sounds like
Yeah.
they're more than capable of doing that. So again, shame. All right, I
Yes.
think we're gonna cut this one out. Milli Vanilli out. Thank you guys. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Lou, take us out, brother.
Peace out, everybody.
Thank you guys.